Welcome to NBA Jam Tatman QC on Fire Edition. Boom shakalaka!
Happy little games. Hello my friends, Patman QC here, and in today's video we are going to do something just a little bit different. Longtime fans of my channel will tell you that 99% of my documentaries are dedicated to my love of retro video games, and in particular, the big, uber sexy machines from the golden age of arcades. Every once in a while, I stray just a bit and cover entire systems, such as the videos I've done on the Atari Lynx, the 3DO, Sega CD, 32X, and the Neo Geo. So today, I thought I would take a look at a machine I always wanted to own as a kid but never got the chance until I was much older. The machine we are looking at today is Sega's first foray into the North American home market, which was the Sega Master System. This machine didn't receive a whole lot of love here in the States, but they had some truly fantastic games, especially if you liked arcade conversions. Today, this is the story of Sega's little black box known as the Sega Master System and the various iterations that led us to the machine we all know and love. So sit back, kick your shoes off, and grab some popcorn because this is the history and the games of the Sega Master System. Before we dive knuckle deep into the history of the Master System, we have to talk about the company that brought us all those wonderful games over the years, which is Sega. The company was started in the 1960s with the title of Service Games of Japan, or Sega for short. The company started out making coin-operated games such as Punching Bag, Periscope, and Rifleman, all in the mid-1960s. They were also the first to make a two-player electromechanical bowling game by the name of Pro Bowler. That's not really imperative to the story, but I just love those old-school mechanical bowling games. After a very successful run in the arcades in both Japan and the United States, after almost 20 years, the business took a downturn in 1982. Since the home video game boom was still going on thanks to the likes of Atari, Sega of Japan's president Hayao Nakayama thought it would be a good idea to use its hardware expertise to move into the home consumer market in Japan. This led to the development of the SC3000 or Sega Computer 3000. That's right, the very first home unit Sega ever developed was actually a home computer.
今日ついに僕のものになった。
セガのパソコンは豊富なソフトが楽しめ、しかもハードキーで33,800円。
After learning that Nintendo were developing their own games console, the Famicom, Sega started developing its own home video game system, the SG-1000, which would be released right alongside the SC-3000. This featured a joystick similar to the Atari, which was hardwired into the system. Rumors suggest that as early as 1981, Sega was test marketing the SG-1000.
Sega ビデオゲーム SG-1000
U.S. company Coleco, who brought us the Cabbage Patch Kids and more importantly the ColecoVision, were rumored to be in some sort of agreement due to Coleco wanting to dip its toes into the Japanese market. This might explain why the hardware between the ColecoVision and SG-1000 were so similar. In recent years, the homebrew community have also helped round out the ColecoVision library accordingly, porting over SG-1000 titles since the hardware is essentially the same. There is even a cool multi-cart for the ColecoVision that has over 90 SG-1000 games on it. Sega had initially projected to sell around 50,000 units of the SG-1000 in its first year alone, and were more than ecstatic when they sold 160,000. Unfortunately though, they couldn't catch up with the Famicom's overwhelming success. The SG-1000 was released on the same day as the Famicom in Japan. However, the Famicom was sold at a lesser price and Nintendo had better third-party relationships which produced superior titles. The Famicom quickly dominated the Japanese market and Sega was left in the dust. In 1984, Sega released an updated version of the system called the SG-1000-2, which included a redesigned outer shell, rearranged expansion ports, as well as two detachable controllers with the controllers themselves looking more like a Famicom pad. Similar to the original SG-1000, the SG-1000-2 runs all the games and applications from the SC-3000. There is also a handy-dandy feature that allows the controllers to be housed on the side of the console, similar to Nintendo's Famicom. A number of peripherals were introduced for the SG-1002, including a printer, keyboard, handlebars, steering wheel, and more.
先生、あれは新しい星ですか？あれは欲しいですね。エクセリオン、オーガス、スタージャッカ、みんな欲しいですよ。
セガならソフトの数だけ興奮がある。
宇宙ソフトも続々。
Once again, the system was not very successful, so Sega went back to the drawing board one more time. The company had been hoping to compete with the Famicom on a more level playing field, or even having the advantage by utilizing newer hardware. Sega released this updated console, the Sega Mark III, in Japan in 1985. The Mark III was a redesigned version of the SG-1000 and was engineered by the same team. This included both Hideki Sato and Masami Ishikawa, who worked on the SG-1002 and would later on help develop the Sega Genesis. According to Mr. Sato, the system was redesigned because of limitations on the TMS-9918 graphics chip which was used in the SG-1000. This had to be done because the chip itself did not have enough power for the types of games Sega wanted to make. The Sega Mark III's chip was designed in-house and it was based around Sega's System 2 arcade board. The Sega Mark III launched in Japan in October of 1985.
駒崎良太郎11歳ゲームの達人と呼ばれる彼は言う
すごいやつが現れた1メガソフトの大容量セガだから4倍手強い北斗の剣とそしてダンプ松本
興奮無限大大きな違いのわかる子供の1メガゲームソフト
隣のゲームはもうつまらない
One significant upgrade is the optional FM sound unit, which includes superior sound and it sounds great. Also upgraded were the visuals. This included twice as many on-screen colors and sprites along with smoother scrolling. The system was backwards compatible with earlier SG-1000 titles but allows both cards and cartridges. Due to Nintendo's licensing practices with third-party developers, Sega could not get a foothold in its own country. Nintendo's contracts at the time required that games for the Famicom could not be published on other consoles. As early as 1984, 6 million Famicom units were sold, and by the end of 1985, 30 million cartridges were put into kids' grubby little hands all across Japan. This brings us to the North American release of the Sega Master System.
You just said the magic words. Now look what you did. And look, advanced video games for less at Toys R Us. The Sega Master System with 28K of memory, super sharp picture, 64 colors plus game cartridge, and all this just $129.99. And it plays these thin Sega cards packed with 256K of unlimited game power from $24.99 to $29.99 each. It's the world's biggest toy store. Let's go!
For the very first time, Sega brought one of its home consoles to the North American market, which was the Sega Master System. The system made its debut at the Summer Consumer Electronics Show in Chicago in June of 1986. A number of accessories were announced for the system, including a floppy disk drive which never came out. This was going to be similar to the floppy disk drive which came out for the Famicom in Japan. It did make its debut behind glass at the Summer CES. The system officially hit the streets in September of 1986 to compete with the Nintendo Entertainment System. Gone were the sickly whites of the previous Japanese Sega consoles, and in its place was a futuristic black and red design that Sega would go on to use for future projects. The original package was the power-based console, a light gun, 2 controllers, and a pack-in multi-cart for $199.99. The games included were Hang On and Safari Hunt, with Safari Hunt making use of the included light gun. The original Master System units would use both cartridges and a credit card size format known as Sega cards. There were also a number of accessories, including the aforementioned light gun, which games such as Operation Wolf utilized to its full potential. Something else that I always wanted to try but never had the chance were the 3D glasses. These were not the typical 1950s cardboard red and green lens glasses, but were state-of-the-art shutter systems that would close the left and right lenses rapidly to create a 3D effect. For its time, it was truly a sight to behold. Only 8 titles utilized the glasses, and that included Outrun, Space Harrier, and Zaxxon. A number of other peripherals were available all across the world, including a 6-button controller, the SG Commander, which is a standard controller with built-in rapid fire, a trackball, and much more. And for those of you who don't know, early models of the Sega Master System included a built-in snail maze minigame, which is a neat little Easter egg. Here in the States, Sega managed to sell 2 million units, but it was a far cry from the 35 million units that Nintendo sold in the same time frame. However, thanks to its worldwide appeal, especially in Europe and Brazil, the system would go on to sell 20 million units in its lifetime. In Europe especially, Nintendo did not have a strong foothold, so for a time, Sega was the dominant force. Even into the late 90s, the system was still popular, which resulted in a number of exclusive titles such as RoboCop vs. the Terminator, Jurassic Park, and the Smurfs. Sega did release some revised consoles, including the Master System 2, which was smaller and sleeker in order to keep production costs low, similar to the smaller and sleeker Nintendo Entertainment System. They also removed the reset button, composite video, and Sega card slot from the original. There was one game that was included depending on your region that would play if no cartridge was inserted. Typically, it would be Alex Kidd in Miracle World, but it was later switched to Sonic the Hedgehog.
The Sega Master System 2 strikes again with the toughest games in town from $29.95 to $69.95. Wonder Boy 3, Battle Outrun, The Ninja, Rastan. The Sega Master System 2, serious fun.
Thanks to the huge popularity of the console and its games in Brazil, Tectoy became the official distributor of Sega's Master System and games. This resulted in the Master System 3 being released in 2008.
Quando parecia impossível melhorar o Master System, a Tectoy lançou o Master System 3. Arrojado e compacto, ele joga mais de 100 jogos do Master System e já vem com Alex Kidd na memória. E olha o que a Tectoy fez com o preço. Apenas 6 de 499.900 e mais um Super Kit do Sonic grátis. Master System 3 Compact da Tectoy. Compacto até no preço.
This included 2 6-button pads and over 130 built-in games. It even includes one Game Gear game, which was Sonic Drift 2. When it comes to the Master System, we definitely have to talk about the Sega Game Gear.
Whoa. Color.
Hey, there's an easier way to get color. Get a Game Gear, the full color portable with over 150 games, like the new Echo, Mortal 2, and Sonic Triple Trouble. Sega!
This was, surprise, surprise, brought to market to compete with Nintendo's dominant Game Boy. However, there was one huge advantage of this system, which was its color LCD screen. With this color LCD screen, though, comes the Game Gear's ability to chew through batteries similar to me at a Chinese buffet. The internals of the machine are largely identical to the Master System. However, it does have slightly better color, but everything runs at a lower resolution. The system was released all over the world in a variety of different colors, including a Japanese Coca-Cola branded unit which looks really cool. There were a number of accessories available, including the much needed rechargeable battery pack, car adapter, and TV tuner for watching your favorite television shows, provided you have a magnifying glass. The system ended up selling over 10 million units in its lifetime, but similar to the Famicom Master System war, Sega could not catch up with the Game Boy and its various iterations, selling almost 120 million units. Now, I would like to show off what I consider some of the best games on the Sega Master System. Growing up and playing the arcade version of Double Dragon for the first time is a memory I still have. There was nothing quite like it at the time, especially teaming up with a buddy to take down the Black Warriors. I was very excited to play it for the NES when it came out, but was sorely disappointed that the 2-player mode was missing, and it was also a bit different than the arcade version. Double Dragon on the Sega Master System is pretty much a straight port of the arcade game, which thankfully includes the 2-player mode. The graphics do a good job at representing the arcade original, as does the music. The controls are pretty good, although there are only 2 buttons, so again, sacrifices had to be made. The game was a lot of fun to play back in the day, especially in 2-player mode. A Sega Master System exclusive is its own unique version of Ninja Gaiden. This is an all-new adventure with a brand new storyline developed by Sega themselves in 1992. This is fantastic, with excellent graphics and everything you would expect from the Ninja Gaiden series. The cutscenes, the music, and especially the gameplay are on point, and so is the difficulty. The animation is nice and smooth, and it features nice, tight controls. If you've never played this version of the game and are a fan of the series, you should definitely check it out. The one title that definitely had to make the list was Alex Kidd in Miracle World. Alex Kidd was the original Sega mascot, but a certain blue hedgehog came along, so Alex was sent to the graveyard. This is a platform game that sees you take control of Alex, who is a pretty tough little dude, traversing 17 levels as you punch your way through the various enemies and rocks. There are lots of pickups, including money, which you can use to purchase several different vehicles you can ride. The graphics look great with bright, cheery colors and nice animation. The music is extremely catchy, and after playing for just a bit, the tunes rattled around in my head, living rent-free. With only 2 buttons, the controls are pretty simple, but Alex does die by taking 1 hit. At the end of each stage, you do play rock, paper, scissors with one of the bosses, in which you can also die if you don't choose correctly. A follow-up was produced entitled Alex Kidd in Shinobi World, in which the game is essentially a parody set in the Shinobi universe. In the arcade game, the first boss was named Ken-O, but when the parody was produced, it was changed to Mari-O, with the boss modified to look like everyone's favorite mustachioed plumber. Nintendo felt this was a bit too on the nose and made Sega change it. No list of the best Sega Master System titles would be complete if it didn't have Sonic the Hedgehog. While not perfect by any means, it's a fantastic translation of its 16-bit big brother. The speed, fluidity, and gameplay are some of the best on the system. Once again, bright cheery colors are present along with smooth animation and unmatched speed. Since this is an 8-bit version, some things had to be cut down, such as the number of rings on screen at once, but overall it's a really great version. Even the music is fantastic along with the sound effects, which never get annoying. There are actually 3 Mickey Mouse games on the Master System, but the best in my opinion is the Land of Illusion. You control Mickey Mouse as he makes his way through 14 distinct different levels, taking out all the various enemies while offering up some of the best graphics on the Master System. You can either jump or throw apples at your enemies, climb platforms, and also swim in this very addictive title. Unlike similar games on the system, the backgrounds are very detailed and Mickey himself has some nice animation. The music and sound effects are also fantastic, as well as the controls. There are even a number of secrets spread throughout each level. As I mentioned, I never had the system growing up and only obtained one years later. One of the best uses of the Sega Scope 3D glasses would have to be Space Harrier 3D. This was actually the second version of the game, only this one has much better graphics and animation to take advantage of the glasses. The scrolling checkerboard is a bit smoother and gives a nice immersion when utilizing the 3D mode. Everything has been transferred into the third dimension, but I was particularly taken by the scrolling landscapes. The palette also has been updated with everything looking quite a bit nicer. This is another game that truly shines with FM sound. The controls have also been tweaked, making for an even better 8-bit version of the game. Ripping off Castlevania is nothing new, but if you want something that is just as good or even possibly better than the original, look no further than Master of Darkness. While this is a ripoff in terms of gameplay, including having to take down Count Dracula It is utterly fantastic. The game takes place across 5 rounds divided into 3 long stages. Instead of using the tried and true whip, you start with a knife which can be upgraded to an axe or something that looks like a cane, which would make the Sandman proud. Similar to Castlevania, you also have sub-weapons including boomerangs, guns, and holy water. The graphics are excellent and look extremely similar to Castlevania. There is very little flicker and the animation is nice and smooth. The music is also extremely good, along with the nice, tight controls, which you definitely need when you have to make those precision jumps. The sprites are a little large, making everything feel a bit cramped, but overall, I would rank it near the top as one of the best Sega Master System games. The Legend of Zelda is truly a classic, and one game that took the formula and translated it perfectly into a unique title for the Master System was Golvilius Valley of Doom. This overhead action RPG is clearly inspired by Zelda, but it puts its own unique spin on the genre. You take on the role of Kelesis as you set out across the land in an attempt to rescue Princess Rina from the evil Golvilius. The game is divided into 7 huge areas, but you do learn new abilities as you progress through the game. There are hidden secrets and a number of enemies that you have to defeat. There are also shopkeepers which sell you a number of different items including potions, Bibles, and health. There is a fair amount of grinding that is necessary, but overall it's not too bad. The graphics are very nice and so is the audio. The music in particular is excellent. There is also a handy but dandy password feature since this game does not include a battery. It's also a fairly lengthy adventure, so you will definitely get your money's worth. One of my favorite games in the arcade growing up was Operation Wolf. We did have a version for the NES, but the graphics were a bit bland. The Master System version rectifies this by providing excellent color and smooth animation. The sprites are nicely detailed with minimal flicker. The arcade's opening attract scenes and in-between level cutscenes are present, but the voices are missing. The sound effects and music are good as well. Playability-wise, it's best to use Sega's light gun, but you can also use the controller. Clearly, the light gun is the way to go. This turned out really good and was one of the best games on the Master System to use the gun. Although Shinobi was released on the NES as an unlicensed title by Tengen, it was the Sega Master System version that fared the best. One major change from the arcade version is the addition of a life bar which allows you to take multiple hits before you die. In the arcade version, one hit and you are deader than a doornail. Speaking of the life bar, by rescuing a certain kid it will increase your health. You also have new weapons in the game such as nunchucks and knives. The level layout is very close to the arcade game with bright colors and nice animation. The music is straight from the arcade game, which is iconic in itself. The controls are silky smooth and it's a lot of fun to play. speaking of Shinobi, I have to make mention of the follow-up, which is Shadow Dancer: The Secret of Shinobi. While there were some solid versions on the home computer market, especially on the Amiga, this was the only home console release to follow the arcade game's layout. The game uses large sprites and the animation is very nice. This time around, your character also has his faithful dog, which can be used to attack enemies from afar. The energy bar from Shinobi has not been used for this version, so similar to the arcade game, it's one hit and you die. The audio is really good with the digitized voice that is heard when you use your ninja magic. It's another solid arcade conversion for Sega's 8-bit machine. Around 15 Sega Master System games were released for Nintendo's Wii Virtual Console, including Sonic, Wonder Boy, R-Type, and Phantasy Star. As I mentioned, the Master System was not as popular here as it was over in Europe, so we only ended up receiving 100 titles for the system as opposed to the 300 released in Europe. It's a nice little system that has a wide variety of games, including some pretty good arcade conversions, which are always my favorite. If you would like to see me cover more Sega Master System games, let me know in the comments down below. If you've never experienced the power of the Sega Master System, you owe it to yourself to check it out. You'll be glad you did. If you like this video, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Also, if you would like to support me on Patreon, please click the link below. If you would like to contribute but not sign up for my Patreon, you can always click the donate button up above. Thanks everyone for watching.